What is up, guys? My name is Arman and you're watching my trading journal. So, I'm gonna be honest and say that it's hard to follow your trading rules. We've been there, I've made it in front of you, I've set everything up, and yet it's still hard for me to follow my own rules. There's just so many factors that come into play when you're trading, your state of mind before, during, and after the trade. And it's all usually down to emotions. So, mostly this will happen when you're going through a bad time, right? That's when the emotions are in a bad place. So let's take my example that's going on right now, actually, where I'm in a huge drawdown and I'm like very close to losing the challenge, right? And emotions are high right now because I'm just losing trade after trade. That's what's happening for the last 2 weeks, right? So you lost your last trade and now it's in your head because it's been 10 trades now and your total balance is just going down. So what happens before the trade? We get into the state of mind where we're convinced that we have to get back everything that we lost, which leads us to making rash decisions. Now the biggest mistake that most people make is that when they come to this point of being very close to losing, they start to oversize their trades. So instead of taking the usual risk of 1%, they'll increase it to like 1.5%, 2%, 3%, or even go all out just because they know that if they do one quick trade and make back like 5-6%, they're good. But what usually happens is this is how you end up losing. And I guess I need to say that this is the main reason why I have been so close to losing, but I'm still in the game, When I came down 5%, I reduced my risk to 0.5, and then when I came down another 2 more percent, so I was down 7%, I reduced my risk to even more, 0.25. And basically what that did was it gave me more chances. So when I was down to 93,000 and if I had kept going with 0.5, I would have had about 6 chances. But since I reduced my risk to 0.25, I had 12 chances. And even if it takes longer to get back, at least I will still get back. So I can say that this was probably the biggest factor of me following my rules of my risk size and sticking to it. If I hadn't done that, I would have probably lost already. Now this next mistake I'm also guilty of, and I've been doing it many times and I still continue to do it. I guess maybe with experience and time I will learn how to get better at it. And which is we jump into trades with little to no plan. So you're down a lot of money, you need to make something, you see a small opportunity like on a small time frame like 15 minutes and you're like, yeah, that looks right, and you just jump in. And what do you expect would have happened? You end up losing the trade, and it happens really quickly too because there was very little plan put into it. There were, I don't know how many confluences you had agreed with, but that's what you did, and then you jumped in too quick because you had to make the money back that you lost, and then turns out you lost even more. Then we got to look into the mistakes that are made when you're in the trade. Again, these are mistakes I make too. I'm still not able to perfect it. I guess it'll take time. I've only seriously started trading since March of this year, so it's not been a very long time of me being a trader, but I'm hoping that as time goes by, I get better and better at this. So what happens is once you're in a trade and you see a little bit of profit, you're so scared of losing that trade that you close the trade early only to find out that it went and hit your full take profit anyway. And another thing in the opposite direction is that when you're losing the trade, you're so scared to lose any money that you can't see that the trade is now invalid and you need to cut it right there, and you let it run to the stop loss. And instead of saving some money, you hit the stop loss and you lost the full amount that you were supposed to lose. And the worst in these scenarios is how I used to be in the past, is you just sit on the trade and wait for it to come back to profit. And I mean, everyone knows eventually where that ends you up. And finally, the mistakes that we make after the trade is done. Now, this usually happens when the trade is bad. What happens is we're not able to accept the loss, or we keep thinking over and over about it and we're not able to move on. And the most important thing to do is move on from the last trade and move on to the next one. Because just thinking over and over about the trade doesn't help you in any way, and it only makes things worse. Make some other mistakes because you're trying to get back the money that you lost. What you need to do is accept that you lost the trade and then move on to it being a new trade from the next one. And so this was week 5 of the FTMO challenge, and and let's take a look at what trades I took and what the bottom line was. And what I'm doing for today's video is I'm gonna split them up into two, because Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, as you'll see, I was making all the mistakes that I was saying that I shouldn't be, and then Thursday and Friday I was actually able to come back a bit from it, and so I just wanted to separate the two and to show you the differences between unplanned and planned trades. Alright, so the first trade for day 17 was Euro NZD. What I noticed when I opened up the chart was that we were trying to break through the mid channel, which I had made. If we go back out a little bit further, you can see that we have an upward channel going for quite a while, and what's happening is that right now we were at the middle of that channel. So what I wanted to see was that we make another higher high, and then I'll catch it on the next higher low and then take it up for another higher high. And for that I prepared myself like this. So unfortunately, instead of making a higher high, we stopped here and it started going down. And for some reason at a certain point around here I started to panic, and for no reason at all, just I closed the trade and lost. If we just keep watching what happens, you can see why that was a mistake, because it caught support from the 100 EMA, which also made a higher low, and then from then on it was just moving upwards. And so here we can see that if I had just stuck it out a little longer, I would have maybe taken profits at one of these points, or at the worst, if it did come back down from there, I would have just closed in break even and not made any loss at all. My third and fourth trade of the day were Euro USD. When I opened the chart, I noticed this. If we sort of zoom out a little bit and get a better idea of what's going on. So here I had drawn out a upward moving channel, and for a while there actually I thought we had broken down from the channel. As you can see here, it just stayed outside of it. But I got a little bit interested when we noticed that we came back in. And I wanted to see now that I'd missed the bottom, I wanted to see another leg of like breaking a resistance, catching support and continuing upwards. So for that, what I did was, this is the point where I'd come in, and what I noticed was this is a resistance here. We're just facing a resistance right now. So I made this box here, and what I wanted to see was that we should pass over this, maybe come back down, and then we can make a move up, which kind of looks like this. So we come in, make a move, and then we go like that. So that's what I was hoping would happen here. Now let's just play it out. And then for that, I kept this as my entry. So at this point we can see that we have broken through the resistance, but now I place the order now, if we come back, to catch it and then move back up. So I still hadn't placed the entry, so I haven't entered yet. And this is when I get in and we start to make some movement upward. And then we come back down and we start moving up. Once we reach this point, I move my stop loss to 0. And as you can see here, I got stopped out. I was watching it again and wanted to see what it would do and see if I could potentially get in again. So I make an order to try and get back in, and at this point I'm back in again. Once we reached break even, after for some reason not being satisfied with this trade anymore, I closed it at break even. However, if we keep watching, we can see what happens. And you can see if I had just stuck to the trade, I would have hit my take profit. My first trade for day 18 was GBP AUD, and when I opened the chart, I noticed that we were in a down channel, which is actually, if you look at it, is part of a bigger up channel. Anyway, let's zoom into where we had to focus. So what I noticed was that we bounced off the bottom of the channel and we were moving upwards. So what I noticed was this, and what I wanted to do was get in on the next time it bounces on the line. So I prepared this, and yeah, let's see what happens. On the trade, and it was looking bad for a while. It almost hit the stop loss, but it caught onto the line and it kept going. When I reached this point, I closed a bit of the trade and let the rest of the trade run. And here we hit the profit, take profit. So my second trade of the day was AUD NZD. What I had noticed was the previous day actually, was that on the daily, we are currently getting rejected from the supply zone. As you can see many times on the daily, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this being the 5th time of us getting rejected here. And what actually happened was that I actually wanted to get in at this point, but yeah, unfortunately I never did anything to get in there. However, what I noticed was at this point when I came in on the chart is that we were sort of going through this support zone here, and you could see it was a pretty strong support zone. Like it rejected here, and it supported here, and it was doing the same thing again. So what I wanted to see was that us go down and then bounce off this, come back in, I'll catch it, and then we go down again. So let me just draw this out. So I wanted to see us continue down, come back up, I would get in somewhere around here, and then we go down. So I continued watching. And immediately we can see that it started going the way it was supposed to. At this point it came back up. I didn't have enough time to make my order, so it went back down. However, once it started going back down, I had made my order and left it. So at this point I'm in the trade. And things were going pretty well for a bit, and then they started going wrong. And after this, once we got here, I kind of started freaking out. So all I wanted to do was close this trade and break even. And what I was doing was just waiting for it to come back down. So every time it came down, I would bring the stop loss down a little bit with it. And what happened is, as you can see there, it came down. So I brought my stop loss down a little bit to say like this point, and then it just shot back up and stopped me out. But what I should have done was just left it be, and as you can see, I would have hit my take profit. So that's the second. And my last trade of the day was Euro JPY, in which I noticed that we broke out of the channel completely, and now I'm waiting for us to get back in the channel so I can short it down. And as we can see, it gets me in, and immediately we start going into a bit of profit, and everything is looking good. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Just to get your idea. At this point, I think I jumped out of the trade as I saw it going up a lot. So I thought it was too quick of a movement to come down, that it would probably go back up and start going up again. So I just jumped out of the trade at this point. For the time being I was right, because it did come back into loss. But if we keep watching this, and there you have it. If I had stuck out of this trade, I would have hit the full take profit. My first trade of the day was AUD USD. And basically what was happening was that we were also in this channel right now, and what I noticed is that we got rejection on, like we tried to come through down, right, and what it was doing was getting rejected at the midpoint of the channel, so we kept going down from that. So what I assumed was happening from this scenario is that we can see many times, one is the middle of the channel plus this support and resistance zone, which it's been playing out with, and at the moment it was trying to break out through. So what I said was that if it fails to break through again, it should come in and we should go down. So let's see how it played out. At this point I'm in, and immediately we can see that it was going back up. What I didn't notice is that it started making this upward trend. It was a bit too late because I got stopped out already. What I should have started to notice was this. And yeah, if I had noticed that, I could have maybe made a long position instead and had a pretty decent return out of this. But yeah, my next trade of the day was AUD NZD, in which I actually used the same short position as the time before, in which I jumped out too early. And what I noticed was that we were back in the same situation. We broke through the support, and it was actually looking like it was getting rejected here due to this candle. So I initiated the same order, and here's how it played out. And yeah, I'm in now, and I got stopped out. My next trade was also AUD NZD, in which I thought that at this point, since it's been getting rejected off of the daily resistance, I would just keep my entry there and then see how that plays out. But what ended up actually happening later on was that, we zoom in on 15 minutes, this is actually where it happened. What I noticed was that we started to go back up, and we broke through this trend line which I had drawn. And what I told myself was that if we break out and then we bounce up, sort of we break out and then we bounce off in this motion, I would jump out of this trade. So at this point here, I canceled the trade. And as we can see, it was okay because it just kept going up, and eventually it would hit the stop loss. Alright, so let's see what happened. So my first trade was with Euro NZD, in which I made a loss of $151.22. My second trade was AUD USD, in which I made a loss of $240. My third and fourth trade were Euro USD, in which I made a loss of $6.50 and $2.60. My next trade was GBP AUD, in which I made a profit of $377.51. The trade after that was AUD NZD, in which I lost $102.65. After which I took a trade with Euro JPY and made $273.23. After which there was another trade with Euro NZD, in which I made a profit of $365.35. After which I had a trade with AUD USD, in which I made a loss of $329.40. And then I had a trade with AUD NZD, in which I lost $301.27. And then I had another trade with AUD NZD, in which I lost $120.15. And a trade with GBP AUD, in which I lost $19.74. So this trade for GBP AUD and I believe this first AUD USD, I don't actually have the recording for it. This one I lost, but I can tell you that it was a rash trade taken on with very little plan. And this GBP AUD with $19 loss was just a mistake. And so the first 3 days ended with a loss of $328.75. The second trade I took was BTC USD. So when I opened up the chart, we were at this point, and what I noticed was that BTC came up here and got stopped, and tried again, got stopped. So this was a resistance zone, and then eventually it broke out and caught support here. So what I wanted to do was, this seemed like a resistance area. Once we passed this, I wanted to long it upwards, and so I made this. And at this point I'm in the trade. And there we go, I'm out. Actually I shouldn't have done this trade, it was too quickly, I didn't analyze much. Later on I realized that there was this trend line being formed and I should have waited for the pullback here to actually start the long, but this was a bit of a rushed trade. So my next trade was USD CAD, in which I noticed at this point that we're coming down from the channel, so the biases were short. We had some hesitation at the mid-channel and then it broke down finally, but I missed that opportunity. So what I started to notice was this potentially having become formed, and as well as the EMAs being on my side, and when I look at the RSI here, so far it's all good, there's no divergence. So what I was hoping was that we would go up here, and then when I would come down from there I would get into the trade. So this was the trade that I made, the order eventually, and let's see how it plays out. So at this point, it's confirmed that this line is real and it's pushing the price down. So now I made a limit order to enter around here. And with that, I'm in the trade. Once we cross this point, I actually close 60% of the trade and then let the rest run while keeping my stop loss at break even. And there we have it, I finished this trade completely. My next trade was Euro USD. Now, what happened here is that we're going in an upwards channel. It came back into the channel and it got rejected off the midline. So I was actually watching it from here, thinking that it will hit this and then go up. But fortunately I didn't get in on this and it just went down, so I thought the move was over. And then it did its thing, moved like this, like this, like this, and then I opened Euro USD again and noticed that the price was here. So what I'm hoping will happen is that we break past this, we come down, and then we continue up. So what I was hoping was for this, and then that. So I waited a little longer to see what would happen, and then decided to make my trade eventually. So around this point I actually got interested in the trade, because it came up and it's staying up now. So where is my... yeah, this was the order that I set up eventually. And I'm in the trade now. So before we continue with this trade, at this was here about 10:15. So at 12:30 a news was supposed to come, and I thought the news would tank Euro USD. So around 12:30 I got out of the trade. Yeah, so I didn't actually hit my full take profit. I got out around here, and I was wrong about the news. So yeah, could have made a lot if I just kept it going. After finishing the previous trade where I took this right down, I was waiting for it to reach the bottom of the channel so I could long it back up. And so once we reached here, I kept my order for here. And there was supposed to be a news coming later on that day, which I thought would make USD appreciate. So I kept this long. And I actually missed this entry, but I got in at this point. And yeah, at the moment it was looking fine, everything was good. And yeah, so the news came and it was against USD, so I went and hit my stop loss. So for the second part of the week, my first trade was Euro NZD, in which I made $365.35. My second trade actually closed on Thursday, but it was part of Wednesday, so we'll ignore that. Then my second trade was BTC USD. Again, this was a rash decision. I should have not taken this. There was no reason to. I didn't do proper analysis, but I took it and I suffered the consequences of losing $253.67. Then my next trade was USD CAD, in which I made $557.64. The next trade was Euro USD, in which I made $341.04. And my last trade was USD CAD, in which I lost $263.53. Now this loss I am okay with because it was the news, and the only problem was that I predicted the news wrong, so I guess that's why I lost. Otherwise, my analysis, if the news hadn't come, it would have probably kept going that way. Anyway, what I wanted to show was that the balance of these 2 days was actually $704.58. If we remove the $20 loss from GBP/AUD, it's probably a bit more, so we can say that it's about $724. And that made my closing balance for week 5 as $92,157. Alright, so now that we've gone over the trades that I took on the first half of the week and why I took them, and the trades I took in the second half of the week and why I took those, you can see the clear difference between when you're thinking right and when you're not, and when you're planning your trades out as opposed to when you're not planning your trades out. And next week is week 6, and I hope that now that I've broken even this week rather than being in loss like the last 2 weeks, I'm hoping that I can now, progress further and bring in every week as a profitable one. And with that, soon enough, I'll have successfully completed the challenge and be a funded trader. So guys, that's it from me for this week. As usual, if you guys like the channel, I would appreciate a thumbs up and a subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, you can always leave them in the comment section below. So anyway, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.